Mick Wadley here from Gap Funded, coming in live on a quick breakdown on how to start a pressure washing business with absolutely no money. A practical two-step funding strategy that gets you a fully equipped and operational without spending a single pound of your own money up front. So let's get fair up it. The opportunity. If you've been wanting to start a pressure washing business but keep putting it off because you do not have the cash sitting there for the equipment, this one's for you. The barrier feels real, but it's not insurmountable. There's an exact two-step process that people are using right now to get fully set up with no money out of their own pocket. So this is not about cutting corners or skipping essential kit. It's about using the right financial tools in the right order to build a legitimate operational business from a standing start. So the sequence matters, the timing matters, and once you understand how the two steps connect, the whole thing clicks into place. It is super simple, but it's a little bit nuanced. So we'll go through it. The goal is simple: get the rig, get the jobs, and use the income to pay it all back before interest ever kicks in. So the problem most people face, here is where most aspiring pressure washing business owners get stuck. A proper rig, the pressure washer itself, hoses, a trailer, a truck setup, all of that costs real money before you've made a single dollar. And the upfront capital requirement is a genuine obstacle, and the traditional routes around it are largely closed off to new starters. So the equipment gap, a professional setup, including pressure washer, hoses, surface cleaner, a trailer, it's going to cost significant money before a single job's booked. The bank problem. Walk into your local bank with no business history and they'll not lend you a cent. Traditional startup loans require years of trading history. Most new owners simply don't have, for obvious reasons. So people assume it's out of reach. They sit on the idea, waiting for savings, watching Instagram reels. And the good news is that assumption's wrong. It comes down to a two-step process that sidesteps both of these obstacles entirely. So here is that two-step process. And the order matters. Skip step one or do it out of order, and step two does not work anywhere near as well. Each step builds directly on the last, and together they create a funding structure that requires nothing from your own pocket. So step one is what we call rapid gap funding. Here's the unsecured money that lands fast, used to prime your credit profile. Step two is going to be your 0% credit card stacking, applied for once your file's primed, used to buy your equipment and set you up, hit the ground running. So step one is the rapid gap funding, unsecured money that arrives quickly, typically 1 to 3 days, and does a specific job on your credit profile at the same time if need be. Step two is 0% credit card stacking, which comes right after. The reason the order is so critical is that step one actively improves the conditions under which step two is applied for, meaning you qualify for a significantly larger stack than you would have done on day one. So step one, let's go deep on the rapid gap funding. Rapid gap funding is a stack of unsecured term loans submitted in the right order across multiple lenders, matched to your income and specific profile. And there's no lien on anything, no collateral. It typically lands in your account within 1 to 3 days of approval. You could get up to 120K. Each lender is going to give you 15 to 20% of your personal annual income. So we're stacking these together. Gap funding ranges typically from 20K to 120K, depending on your income profile. Takes 3 days to fund. Money typically lands in your account, cash to spend in 1 to 3 days. And it's zero collateral required. So it's fully unsecured, no lien on assets, no property at risk. The key distinction here is that multiple unsecured term loans are stacked simultaneously across lenders applied at the exact same time. So this is not a single application to a single institution. It's a coordinated approach that maximizes the total amount available to you based on your income, not your business history. Now, where does that money go? That initial rapid gap funding does not all go toward equipment straight away, unless you're positioned to do so. The money's split across two specific uses. And the first use is the one that makes the entire strategy work. So paying down revolving debt consolidation, in other words. A portion of the gap funding goes directly toward paying down whatever revolving credit card debt you're already carrying. And this is the single move that lowers your utilization, frees up cash flow for the business, and going to considerably boost your FICO score in one reporting cycle. And then the rest of it that you haven't used for debt consolidation can get set aside for equipment and startup costs. So held in reserve for pressure washer, trailer, hoses, business licensing, paying for leads and insurance, ready to deploy once your credit file has been primed. So most people assume the funding goes straight into gear. The smarter move is to use it strategically on your credit file first, because that unlocks a far larger pool of 0% capital in a step two than you could have accessed otherwise. Now let's look at why paying down debt first matters in depth. This is the file prep step that nobody talks about, and it's arguably the most important part of the entire process. Credit utilization, how much of your available revolving credit you're currently using, makes up about 30% of your FICO score. It's the biggest lever we can pull to position ourselves correctly, and it's obviously the fastest moving variable in your credit profile. So utilization accounts for 30. Typically people come to us in that range of 60 to 100% utilized cards, like 80% here. Many applicants begin with that 80%, which significantly suppresses their score coming in. And score improvements happen in one reporting cycle. So your FICO is going to jump in under 30 days, depending when those cards are going to report next. If you're sitting at 80% utilization and you drop that to near zero using the gap funding, your score can move 40 to 80 points in one reporting cycle. And it can happen inside. That score movement is what unlocks a materially better outcome in step two. So let's look closely at step two. You've probably heard of 0% credit card stacking before. That reporting cycle hits, your score has moved. File's now primed for step two, 0% credit card stacking, because your utilization's down and your score's up. You qualify for bigger stack than you would have day one. And that's where you apply for the multiple, say 4 to 5 0% business cards at once, matched to your location and banking relationships. In this step, we can also do a double stack. If you want to strategically use 0% personal cards as well, we can stack 4 to 5 business and 4 to 5 personal cards at the exact same time for the maximum outcome. Say if you just go for business, we could get up to 150K in one run, applied across multiple 0% cards simultaneously, matched to your improved credit profile and banking relationships. So I'm going to now give you access to a 12 to 21 month interest-free window. So sometimes nearly 2 years to generate revenue, pay down balances before any interest applies. And the critical point is that this stack is applied for after your file's been primed by step one. So typically we want over a 700 credit score and no derogatories and anything holding you back. So the same person applying on day one versus day 30 can qualify for a dramatically different total, which is precisely why the sequence is non-negotiable. And a little point on the sequence as well, even if you don't have debt, even if you already are a 700 credit score, we want to go for gap funding first, because we don't want the inquiries from the credit stack to be on the file before we go for gap funding. So the full timeline from start to operational business is shorter than most people expect. And here is how it plays out from day one through to buying your equipment and taking your first jobs. Gap funding lands in your account in 1 to 3 days, debt's paid down, days 3 to 30, your score jumps, your debt's reduced, you've freed up cash flow, and you're ready for 0% cards as soon as that FICO is updated. And then you're launching, you're purchasing equipment, starting the business, paying for some leads, getting pumping. So the part most people miss, the strategy does not end when the equipment's purchased. What makes this approach genuinely powerful for building a long-term business is what happens after the first jobs start coming in. And this is where a one-time funding mechanism becomes a revolving growth engine. Pay down card balances as jobs come in. As revenue arrives from early jobs, directed towards paying down the 0% card balances, this keeps you well within the interest-free window and begins rebuilding available credit. Now that you've shown you can max out cards, pay them down on time, limits increase over time. So as you pay down balances, your available credit limits grow. Your profile strengthens with each cycle, making the next round of stacking larger and more accessible. A lot of people don't realize once that 12 to 18 months is up, you're actually ready for a much larger stack for the next round. So you can continue this revolving line of 0% with more capital. And when you're ready to add a second rig or a second crew, you can stack bigger on the cards that keep working for you rather than a one and done loan. And it becomes a revolving line that grows alongside the business instead of a fixed loan that simply gets paid off. The infrastructure you build in month 1 is the same infrastructure that funds your expansion in month 12. And I hope that makes sense. So the reason this works so well for pressure washing, and this two-step approach suits pressure washing especially well, and it really comes down to two characteristics that make the business model an ideal fit for this particular funding structure. So firstly, there's a low equipment cost relative to other trades. The total setup cost for a professional pressure washing rig is small compared to most service business, and that means the 0% card stack covers it comfortably, and the interest-free window is more than sufficient to generate the revenue needed to pay it down. Secondly, jobs get booked and paid fast. Once you're operational, jobs are booked and paid quickly, often same day. The gap funding covers you in those first few weeks while your file catches up. And by the time you're stacking cards, the business is already bringing in real revenue. And the combination of manageable equipment costs and a fast cash conversion makes pressure washing one of the cleanest fits for this funding model. And the numbers work, the timeline works, the business generates income well before any interest period expires. So what you need before you start. This process works best when a few conditions are in place before you begin. None of them are difficult to meet, but being clear on each one before you start means the whole process runs more smoothly and the outcome's more predictable. So if you do have existing revolving debt to pay down, that is actually a good position to be in if you're not quite a 700 credit score, because it gives you the lever to be there in less than 30 days. A clear target service area. So have a business plan, know your equipment costs, know how you're going to be generating leads before you run through this, and a realistic equipment and insurance budget. Have a clear number in mind for your pressure washer, hoses, surface cleaner, trailer setup, business licensing, and insurance. Knowing your target figure means the funding is structured to cover it precisely with no guesswork and no staying up at night wondering, shit, am I going to cover my expenses? So see what this looks like with your numbers. Every situation is different, obviously. Your income, your existing credit profile, your target service area, and your equipment budget all affect exactly how the gap funding and credit card stacking are structured. The best way to understand what this looks like for you specifically is to map it out with your actual numbers rather than working from generalization. So head to gapfunder.com/apply, book a call. We'll map out a gap funding, the pay down, and the stack so you know exactly what you'd be working with before you commit to anything. On the call, the gap funding amount is matched to your income, the pay down strategy is mapped to your existing balances, and the card stack is sized to your improved profile. So you leave with a clear picture of the total available to you, the timeline from the application to equipment purchase, and the repayment structure that keeps you inside the 0% window throughout, even after that first introductory period. No obligation. The call is a mapping exercise, so you'll know exactly what the process looks like with your numbers before making any decisions. Worst case scenario, you're walking away with a free game plan. So head over, gap funded, days, not weeks. That is the two-step process getting people into pressure washing with no money down. Rapid gap funding lands fast, primes your credit file by paying down revolving debt, sets up materially stronger application for 0% credit card stacking, and the cards cover the equipment, the trailer, the licensing, and the insurance. Do not forget the leads, all inside a 0% interest window that gives the business time to generate real revenue before repayments begin. So a full recap of the steps. Step 1, gap funding lands in 1 to 3 days. Step 2, credit card stacking up to 150 grand, giving you a 12 to 21 month 0% interest breathing window, and the result is a fully operational pressure washing business, funded, equipped, and generating income with nothing out of your own pocket. So if this was useful, there is a lot more breaking down the other ways investors and business owners are funding deals without touching their own cash. The pressure washing model is one of the cleanest examples, but the same two-step framework applies across a wide range of service businesses and investment strategies. So subscribe, head over to the website, check out more, do your deep dive, do your due diligence. Let's go close something.